Dude, those spider bots.
Easily.
I have totally forgotten about
Me
that.
too. Me too. I love that it's showing restraint, but giving us the clarity for the things that matter.
Control is awesome, dude.
Dude, so fantastic.
But I love this movie. Welcome back to another episode of Reel Chums, where chatting about movies feels like hanging out with friends. I'm your host, Marcel, and with me as always is my co-host, Danny.
This week, we are diving into Minority Report, directed by Steven Spielberg and written by Scott Frank, John Cohen, and based on the short story by Philip K. Dick. The film stars Tom Cruise, Samantha Morton, Max von Sydow, Colin Farrell, and many more.
We're continuing our theme this month, Wrongfully Accused, where we look at movies about innocent people forced into a life or death chase. Next week, we're going to wrap it up with The Next 3 Days, a more grounded take on this theme. But before we roll the intro, just a reminder, if you enjoy what we do and want to support us, you can head over to reelchums.com. That's REELCHUMS.com, where you can donate any amount, whether that's $1, $5, whatever you can spare.
Thank you to everyone who has donated. It really helps us keep the light on. You can also join in the conversation by heading to YouTube and smashing that subscribe button. You'll get trailer reactions, movie and TV show reviews, and our thoughts on movie news. But with that being said,
let's roll that intro.
question of the day, man. This movie was released in 2002, and this movie does a pretty great job at depicting what the future and like technology, how we implement that. Mm-hmm. For you, how do you want to see a future like this in the sense of like computer and pure personal computation, or is there a better way? Does someone else do it that you think would be more enjoyable?
Here's the thing. Like, I like the use of like the hands, which we've gotten a version of that with the Apple
Vision Pro,
right? So I like that aspect. What I don't like is like the fact that computers or the monitors are all like clear.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I don't want to be in an office setting and I'm working on my computer and someone can like see what I'm doing. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
I think that like I just don't like that aspect of it. So like, yeah, I would love to control everything with my hands, but I don't want it to be. I want my monitor to be a monitor and not a window that's projecting images.
Okay.
Because then people can see everything that I'm doing.
Yeah.
And not doing.
On my end, I think I also agree. I will say that this idea of like transferring like to a physical, this thing that like represents, and the idea of, it was funny because they had the depiction of the, of the kid and the spatial filmmaking, which Apple has also brought with their Apple Vision Pro, and the iPhone can do like a portion of this or can render something into a spatial thing, and there's like a special lens that you can do to be able to do that style of rendering. But I'm like, oh, like this is this weird level of technology. And I only bring this up because this is more of a technical like IT thing, but Apple just released that they're going to be having a new UI change, which is the glass UI, or what they call it. It's like a glass framework for all their applications, and bringing it more in line with Vision Pro.
Oh, okay.
And a lot of people, there's been a lot of hate on like, if this is weird, why do we like this feels not like Apple. But then I watched one video, if I can find it and I could download it, I'll put it in the pod, but where she talks about how Apple is trying to shift our mindsets of what if you have to interact with a piece of glass and our notifications, i.e. like glasses.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
A world where we have some level of glass that our notifications have to be seen through this thing, or we have to be able to like engage with our technology through a glass or through something. In this movie, rewatching it, I'm like, ooh, are we getting closer and closer to more of a Minority Report style world when it comes to personal technology?
Also, just like the level of invasiveness from the ads. I mean,
oh, that's the thing. So that was, and the fact that it's like all it's all personalized towards this thing where I'm like, man, this is before
Yeah,
Facebook.
this is before Facebook. Like they got this right. They got it
Yes.
right. The level of like personalized ads that you have. I remember when I watched it as a kid, I was like, oh, that's kind of cool. Now I'm like, I hate it. Now I'm just like,
Get it out of here.
yeah, don't
Yeah.
listen.
Oh,
Freaking Instagram.
Stop. No Meta. I don't want you to track every single thing I do and where
Yeah.
I go. Oh, it's just one of those interesting perspectives. Like how many things they got so right. So in such in a time frame that like personal computation was like early.
Yeah.
So
Well, I was reading that Steven Spielberg, like 3 years before the production began, he gathered like a group of 16 experts from MIT, from the Defense Research Project, from just various organizations, and they sat down and said, okay, let's realistically, what would the future look like in
right.
50 years from now?
Mm,
And so, like, this is them being like, I mean, scientifically, technologically, this is socially, this is kind of like the path that we're leading to. So they got certain aspects right. It's amazing that like the concept of like social media
yeah.
in 2002, even for experts, was nowhere to be
Yeah.
comprehended,
Yeah.
right? But like personalized ads, yes.
Right.
The self-driving cars, obviously.
The use of technology to capture memories to revisit and relive.
The blueprint of a lot of what we have was thought of by these experts many years ago. So
Yeah.
it's interesting to look into it, to see that.
Okay. So Minority Report. If you've lived under a rock, and you need the synopsis, let's break this down. In a future where specialized police unit arrests criminals before they commit a crime, Chief John Anderton becomes the target of a pre-crime prediction and must go on the run to clear his name.
What's your relationship with this movie?
This is a movie that came out. I didn't watch it in theaters. I did watch it. It would come on. I don't think I had seen it beginning to end until I was like, I think maybe either senior in high school or I was in my first year of college. And I think part of it is like it's a slight monotone color palette for a futuristic film. I think as a kid, I'm not interested in this. Like I don't want to be interested in this or something. Whatever.
Okay.
Like I don't know what I didn't capture the story, or I wasn't part of like the first half, or I just came in at a wrong time that I think I just never solidified it.
Yeah.
But I remember when I did watch it for the first time, I'm like, this movie's great.
Yeah.
I also was like, man, freaking sci-fi is awesome. I think this is one of those, like, I know a lot of people love Star Wars and Star Trek or all this stuff, but I think this movie solidified like this would be sick to have, you're dealing with computers, this idea that, self-driving cars, the fact that, it's that technology that there is this idea that people to live and those who might have committed those crimes would be punished, right? Even though, there's a whole lot of ramification to what that could look like and what that means. That concept of like, asking yourself these other additional questions of like, would that be beneficial? Would it not be beneficial? How is that there? I thought was quite intriguing and amazing. So yeah, that's kind of where I'm at.
Dude, I think I saw this in theaters. I'm pretty sure, like at the dollar theater that we had, and we own this movie on DVD. I love this movie. I think I was fascinated, obviously, by like the technology elements of it all, but I think the idea of a story about crime and arresting individuals before the crime takes place was just fascinating.
Yeah.
Right. It's such a stylized for Steven Spielberg, such a stylized style of movie.
I was gonna say, I think that's one of the things that I always forget every time I would watch this and see it. I'm like, oh yeah, Spielberg did this.
Yeah. And I think now that I watch it, I'm like, oh yeah, I see why Spielberg really likes J.J. Abrams, because a lot of this feels like J.J. Abrams, and I'm like, I see why Spielberg felt gravitated so much to JJ and like
Mm,
helped guide him in his career and whatnot. But like, there's so much here that that Spielberg does with whether it's the lens flares or the grading, the camera movements, that I feel like we see a lot of from Spielberg later on,
mm,
and it's just very interesting. But I love this movie. I think now, the older I get, I enjoy more of the fact that because it is a Spielberg movie, and because right before this he had done AI, which again, this is early 2000s Spielberg. He's really grasping at big ideas.
yes.
He had just done AI before this. After this, he goes on to do War of the Worlds,
Yes.
again with Tom Cruise,
Yep.
and he does Munich shortly after that. So
Yeah.
he's like grasping with some really interesting themes and ideas in
Mm,
his movies about
mm-hmm.
technology, going back to the past with Munich and how that was played out for those Olympics. It's such a fun era of Spielberg that I really like. But I think now, the older that I get, I appreciate this movie because it is a Spielberg movie, and it's something that he hasn't quite done since.
Yeah.
I mean, you could argue that Ready Player One was similar, but not really, not at all.
No, yeah.
But like, it's so unique. It's a very unique Spielberg movie that, and it has its little Spielberg quirks, and we'll talk about in a bit. But it's very different to anything he had done and has done since, and I really really like it for that.
I agree. I think that this is one of those things where he's testing the waters in some capacity.
Yeah,
Like he's trying to decide, is this something I want to do more of? And I think he could easily, this franchise, this IP is solid. It'd be interesting to have it play out and try to like revisit it in some other capacity.
they tried doing a TV series a couple of years ago.
They try doing a TV show, but that one was not great.
I heard it was horrible.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure I watched the pilot. I don't remember anything of the pilot, but I'm pretty sure I did watch the pilot and was like, no.
Yeah,
I don't even think I finished it. I did. Like I started the pilot. I don't think I finished it, but it was on Fox, I believe.
yeah, I think it was.
Yeah,
Fox,
it was an era when they were trying to I don't think it was pre the purchase of Fox to Disney.
Yes.
As they were testing a whole bunch of detective films with technology. There was like one where there was a robot. They had the Minority Report. They had a couple of stuff that was going on. When we were thinking about this film for this month, I was like, I think you brought up the fact, like, do we save that for Sci-Fi, like a Sci-Fi month or whatever?
Yeah.
But I'm like really excited that we brought this in as the wrongfully accused, with the backdrop of the cognate or the precox, right? And this idea of protection before things happen, and the theme of like of what's the word, agency, or even like of
Free will.
of free will. Is there free will, or are things, and because like, they have the exposition of saying like, it's been what, 2 years since they've introduced it to the city of DC, and crime has gone down 95%, and that ultimately the only things that come through are crimes of passion.
Yeah.
Things that get triggered in a situation, right? And I think those are some pretty big, like, on top of the sci-fi, like having that be like we all kind of get caught up sometimes with that, but like what that means, like what does that look like, and is a really big swing thematically. And I'm excited to talk about this more. So
Yeah.
I wanted to know where you at, like, where are you at with this movie, with this theme?
It's such a fun theme because I think in this era you had just had 3 years before the Matrix, right? That's taking on these themes of like destiny and choice, obviously, but choose to follow the white rabbit. You have a choice, Mr. Smith, blue pill, red pill, but he's destined for big things, right?
Yeah.
Harry Potter as the chosen one, right, is coming in through here as well. So like you have these themes of like destiny or predestination big in Hollywood. And this movie does it unique in a sense that it's a crime movie. It's a noir movie as well.
Yeah.
And and it's a sci-fi movie. So it's taking these themes and incorporating it in this environment. And we'll talk about this in a second, but like the world building here is wonderful and beautiful. But I love the idea of what it's trying to say. I think if you dissect it a lot, I think there's some contradictions, but the concept of murder, or sorry, arresting people before they've committed a crime raises a lot of questions,
Yeah.
right? Like, and I love the exposition. I love exposition, but I love the exposition of Tom grabbing the ball, throwing it on the desk, and what's his face catches it.
The Colin Farrell.
Colin Farrell's character, I forgot his name. He catches it and he's like, "Well, why'd you catch that? Because it was gonna fall, right? So, are you sure it was gonna fall? Well, yeah. Okay, but you catching it doesn't prevent the fact that it was going to fall, right? So it's this concept of like, when do we have choice? Do we have choice, or do our choices lead us to our destiny?
Mhm.
And that's something that's so fun to examine in this movie, because you could have done this movie in another way where it doesn't have to be about crime, but by adding the element of crime, of murder into it, it really enhances the world building, like I said, and it's just wonderful storytelling.
This idea of choice, or leading to destiny, leading to um what is our when do our choices truly have an impact on our lives, um uh in all things, right? Like there's a saying of like, luck is only when opportunity meets preparation,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yeah.
And so this idea, this concept is, I think I'm a huge fan of, just like thinking of for those things. And I think they did a fantastic job here.
Does it portray that well? The idea that, because later in the movie, right, Anderton,
Yes.
he sees what happens. He's going to murder someone who he has no idea who it is. Um, and that big chunk of the second act is leading towards that reveal of, is he going to murder the guy or not? And Agatha's screaming and, no, run!
Oh, I forgot that that's part of this movie. I have that like in break, but I always forget that it's part of Minority Report.
Yeah.
And when it happens, I'm always like, oh.
But he does change. He decides not to shoot him, not to kill him, right? But the guy still dies. So it's interesting how the movie depicts that, and there's some contradictions here, but we're not going to go too much into it, just because like it's for entertainment's sake. But I love the idea of, are you able to change your future if you are able to see it? And is that a bit of a cop out as a storytelling mechanism, to be able to say, because I have seen the future, I can change, or I can make the choices that take me to it, or I can make the choices that prevent me from doing that. And I think that's fascinating to think about. And even at the end, when Max von Sydow's character decides to commit suicide, kill himself, and then the pre-crime program kind of disintegrates because of it, it then poses those questions like, if you kill me, then you, as a director of this program, then fail. But if you don't, then pre-crime never worked, because then your precogs predicted the wrong outcome. So it's really, the movie does that really well, where it shows us the beginning act of, or the beginning scene of the guy that was about to murder his wife.
Yes.
And how it works there. Then we see Anderton's dilemma of how he sees his future and he decides not to act on it. Still, the death happens. But then we see the final one with Tom Cruise and Max von Sydow, and how he then, by knowing the future, decides to not kill Tom Cruise, and then the disintegration of the pre-crime. So it's really interesting that it gives us 3 different versions of the program. One that works efficiently and very effective, and then the other 2 that might not work, and it shows us the flaws of of the system.
I think for the concept for the film, they did a great job.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, does it? If you look too much and you think about it a lot, of course, there's going to be like this weird country. Like,
Yeah.
they're dealing with a concept that is hard to fully like break down. But they did a fantastic on a script, on execution of production, and on editing wise, to try to to bring intrigue. I love that in like the Colin Farrell, which we're gonna get this in just a second. I love Colin Farrell and Tom Cruise in this film.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, I almost want them. I want them on screen again.
Yeah.
For some other capacity, because this one gave me a huge. What's the Apple TV series that he was? Sugar.
Yeah. Sugar.
Yeah. This
Where
gave
he's
me
like a private eye.
Yeah,
right?
he's a private eye. This gave me hardcore Sugar like style vibes. But I didn't realize how much Colin Farrell like still looking great.
Colin Farrell is awesome, dude.
Dude, so fantastic.
He is great. I think this was my first introduction to Colin
Me
Farrell.
too.
What a great character. Because Danny Whitwer.
Good Danny.
Here's the thing about this movie is that from a screenplay perspective, you are creating you have your antagonist, or we're introduced as Whitwer as the possible antagonist, right? He's questioning the program.
Correct.
He's sneaking into Anderton's apartment, finding drugs, whatever. He says, like, my role is to make sure that, like, if there are any issues, like, we find them, fix them, or we shut down the program. Like, it's not personal.
Yeah. It's just business.
It's just business, right? It seems like it becomes personal by breaking into Anderton's apartment and finding drugs, but
100%.
But then the reveal of his role in everything is so good. But the movie presents Whitwer as this antagonist, but it subtly shows us that the world building is the antagonist of the film. And this is something very, very beautiful about this movie, that we later find out that the character of Max's character, I can't remember him, is the real villain.
Correct.
Right? But it's the mechanics of the world building here that are playing the antagonist aspect of the story. The predestination, the precogs finding out the murders, piecing together the visions that they're having. Obviously, the aspect of a Minority Report, when that comes up and the system just puts it away because it could be a duplicate vision that they're having. I find that extremely fascinating from a screenplay perspective, because you are leveraging the story, the world building, the mechanics of receiving visions, of manifesting those visions for people to grab, the arresting someone before the murder is committed, as the antagonistic element of the movie. And very few movies are able to do that. Traditionally, you have an antagonist.
Yeah.
You have an individual that's going against our protagonist. Whereas here, you're leveraging the mechanics of the world that you're telling to serve as the antagonistic elements for the movie. And I just think it's wonderful.
No, I think that scene when Tom Cruise is Anderton heads to he's fleeing, he heads to the creator of the precogs, whatever her name is.
Oh, the doctor.
The doctor. I think that scene alone is just another world build. You've got like these plants that are alive. Why do they have plants that are alive? what this lady's also, she's doing some kind of genetic mutation to these plants.
Yeah.
That the precogs were accidents.
Mm-hmm.
And that she, to some degree, feels responsibility for what they have to live through.
Yep.
Right? That, again, like to your point of like the world and how it's not just like, it's not just the world in general, and how the implications of this world is the antagonist.
Yes. But very importantly, and I think an amateur writer like myself or any others would want to over-explain the world. And the script here doesn't do that. They just tell you, yeah, there's self-driving cars. That's it. Like that, you don't need any more explanation. Yeah, there are weird plants that come to life. That's it. Like, you don't need to over-explain every little element. Obviously, the precogs, by telling us that they're children of drug addicts and whatnot, like, yeah, give us some context into there. But the world building itself there's no need to say, back in 2034, we introduced this legal aspect that now we can send little spider robots to like scan people's eyes. We don't need any of that.
Correct.
It just is. You drop us into this world, and as the story is progressing, we're learning more elements about this environment and this world.
I love that it's showing restraint to the entire, not to a lot of the world, but giving us the clarity for the things that matter.
Yeah.
The exposition is there to only give you like a brief portion of what you need in order for you to have to know what's happening in the story or in the world that you're in.
Yeah.
The rest of it, you don't need to explain. It's the showing, not telling. This is what that phrase is really meant for. It's like, okay, what do you need to tell? And when do you need to tell it? The rest of it, we're going to show or, elude or bring there. I think this is why a lot of people love John Wick. They developed more on the world perspective. This movie just is a masterclass in this, is that you have, you didn't need to know the other aspect of that, because it's a noir film, right? We don't have to know how the rest of the world operates. We just know that everyone in some capacity like has some identification card that you are always being quote unquote watched, or you have a connection.
You're under surveillance,
You're
man.
under surveillance. And the only way to do that is to rip your eyes out. Is there a metaphor there? I don't know. I haven't got to that point of the level of the film that, the thing with underneath the thing. But I feel like there's a huge message there of like, what lengths are you willing to go in order to, not have to be watched by your own, this perspective. He goes and takes out his eyeballs.
The only way for you to not be watched is for you to remove the ability to see.
Yeah. And so this is freaking amazing stuff.
I love it. Yeah.
So with this, and what I think I've really thoroughly enjoyed from this month's theme of like Wrongly Accused is how, like, instead of taking a genre, you can take this thing of like being wrongfully accused and how differently how different each execution has taken place. Right? And Minority Report is probably one of the tops of like, okay, this is the premise. A man's being wrongfully accused, but he's being wrongfully accused and by a system that predicts crime. Will he be able to change his future? But the truth is it really about the crime, or is there something bigger at foot, right? Yeah. And I think that the reveals in this film are some of the best. And this is something that so John Cohen was the one who wrote the first script for this in 1997, and you can read the script online. It's very interesting because obviously he expanded on the novel by Philip K. Dick, but there's a lot that's thrown out the window. And Scott Frank is then brought in the late 90s, early 2000s to take Cohen's script and just kind of flesh it out. And I think that's so interesting because I think lately, look, right now we're in the middle of the press tour for Superman. And James Gunn is just tripling down on the fact that he's not going to greenlight a movie unless he has a finished script and it's completed and it works, right? He didn't throw shade, but he mentioned, like, I think some of the issues that Marvel has had lately is that they're greenlighting projects without a finished script. He even said, I think that's the biggest challenge Hollywood has, is that there's too many studios that are greenlighting movies with an unfinished script. They're just doing it on ideas.
Yeah. And this movie, like, for a studio to say, yeah, we have the rights to this book, we have an author or a writer that's creating a script. He's taking a stab at it, but we're not quite satisfied with it. Let's bring someone else to come take a look at it. They clean it, they fine tune it. Spielberg brings in his ideas as well, and now you have this very clean, concise story. Because to your point, yes, you could have spent a large portion of this movie telling me things instead of showing them, right? And it would have just bogged it down because there are some huge ideas and themes in here. But as a filmmaker to say, let's keep these themes, let's keep these ideas, but let's simplify it by not over analyzing, by not over explaining the world and the environment that we're in. Let's let these themes come naturally as we're building the story by showing the audience what's happening. And I just think that's great. From like, I think I come back to this movie because of the technicality that's found in the script. Beautiful imagery here by Spielberg and team, but like the script itself for me, I just think it's just almost perfect. And it does. I think a lot of people complain about like it slows down a little bit in the middle part during the eye removal aspect, but I think it adds suspense to it all, and I really really like it.
That's where I wanted to go. I wanted to talk about the technical side of this film.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, this film holds up so well.
Yeah.
And I think the more of these movies that we watch that are longer or like older, but they early like technology of stuff that we're using now, of how, because it was early, they wanted to leverage it, but there was also this level of like, we wanted to make it feel and look good.
Mm-hmm.
But I think part of all of this comes down to the fact that they had developed scripts, or at least to the most part, like they had a plan to be able to execute on the thing, right? This is another film that from beginning to end captures an entire story, like The Fugitive, right? It's you have a really solid first act, you have a solid middle act, and you have a solid conclusion that is impactful.
Yeah.
Right? The setups and the payoffs are 100% there. And what I think I like about this film and the structure is that, again, similar to similar to The Fugitive, this film locks you in to who Anderton is.
Yeah.
But on his foundational character. He believes in the system, but he has a deep personal impact into wanting to making it work. Right? Mm-hmm. Similar situation, we set the bar. We set the situation and where things are at. And he introduces us into some of the core principles. We then get transitioned into the fact that he's being accused of murdering somebody. And he's like, I don't even know this guy.
Yeah.
How can I even kill a person that I don't even know? Right? And that is the looming question of like, he wants to prove to the fact that like, I don't know this guy. Whoever for whatever reason I'm in here, this is not for me. Mm-hmm. But then having the full, as in that there's that slice, it's slowed down quite aggressive, similar to The Fugitive. It takes some time to, it introduces us into the world. Like, despite all the personalized ads and all the fancy technology that there are slums. Yeah. And there are dirty people that are doing things so that people can get away from the government.
Yeah. I love how dirty this movie gets.
This movie gets grimy. Like,
it is filthy.
It does not showcase high end, like you get the precog in the prevision with like him walking, one of the scenes when he first walks into the building and Anderton, and he's like, how's the baby? She's like, or when's the baby due? And she's like, hopefully not soon or whatever. But it's a nice building. It's it's beautiful. It's got all the things that, like, this is a high end. But at the end of they go to that nice suburban town. It's got it's just like a regular, whatever. But when you look at all the things that are happening for where in the other half, he's brought down in the worst of the worst. He goes to a rough place to get his drugs. He is, there's just like the juxtaposition. And I think that's just powerful. Yeah. And because of that happening, and then not only realizing the fact that like, I want to change the reality, but him, and you want him to kill this guy when he encounters the situation, right? We want Anderton to murder this man who he perceives to have killed his son, or taken his son,
kidnapped, and
abused, all the darkest things that we
Yeah.
don't ever want to even think about. And then the clarity of like, he said you were going to kill me. This huge reveal for the third act of like, well, who, what are we talking about? Why is someone coming after me? Right? And then building up for the climax of that thing. It is just masterful filmmaking.
The payoffs, the reveals here, especially with the Whitwer one, right? Like, he starts getting involved, similar to how we talked about Gerard in The Fugitive, right? He's come here for a specific mission, a purpose, but as he's pulling on this thread, he's realizing something larger is at play, and finally realizes the issue with the system. And oh no, I don't think it's Anderton. And it's interesting because an hour and 10 minutes has gone by.
Yes.
And I don't like Whitwer, right? Like,
yeah.
Son of a gun, get away from here, right?
Yes.
And then as it's only like a 2-minute sequence of him realizing that, oh no, there's something larger at play here, and here's the truth, and I'm telling you about it, director. And then he gets shot. Oh, it's just like, no. You pulled the rug under me, and someone who I was led to believe was our main antagonist now is on my protagonist's side, but then gets taken out. Oh, so good.
So, and the person that you think is on your side,
turns out is not. It is great. Just the reveals.
The reveals. And I think that this is the thing, like you can't get these moments without processing down and sitting with the scripts before you film.
Yeah. And now look, we also talked very in detail during our episode of The Fugitive how that movie kind of was written on the fly, right?
Yes.
Very different to this.
But I think there's a level of like, are you a partner? There was a collaboration there?
Yeah.
Right. The whole team was in on how can we make this, great, and having people who can execute on that on the spot in delivering that, and then having the flexibility with multi-camera frameworks. Right here, Spielberg he's a storyboard guy.
Yeah.
He locks in on his storyboard and how it's going to depict. He thinks about these things in play. Now, I want to ask the question is like, why shoot this as a noir?
Interesting. Well, look, very traditional noir films are always following our detective, our one guy that's out to solve a mystery. And they're very character driven. You get a lot of intimate shots, lots of close-ups. It's a one individual struggle to find the truth, whether it's about a murder, a case, a crime, whatever that may be. What this movie does, it takes, as we've talked about, the idea of like all of these futuristic elements, science fiction elements, but it grounds it by turning it into a noir film, by making it individually focused on this. And again, as we've discussed, this movie could have gone in so many different ways. Like it could have just become this sci-fi fest of like technology and what people are doing and like exposition and over explaining things.
100%.
Right? But it doesn't do that because it becomes a noir film about trying to solve a murder, a soon to be murder. And then we later find out, no, there was a murder that then justifies the use of all of these things. Agatha's mom. But I think more than anything, with such a big themes and big visualizations that you're going to be using because of the world that you're telling the story in, you ground this story and you make it more accessible by turning it into a noir film. And that's something that like Blade Runner did, right? Another Philip K. Dick movie or a story. So like it's just, I think individuals that have adapted his work into films have had that approach, whether it's Ridley Scott, Steven Spielberg, even Total Recall. but like how do we ground it by making it more of into a personal story of the individual. And I think doing a noir just leans itself to tell a murder story from that point of view, from that aspect. And I just love it.
Yeah. I remember every single time Whitmer comes in, I hate him. Like, he's arrogant.
Yeah.
You know, I do want to, with Colin Farrell, I think the fact that we are automatically assuming that he is the protagonist,
Mhm.
and that he does go after, and he's being quite aggressive in his pursuit of trying to find answers.
Yeah.
Maybe personal. Who knows what maybe he's like been watching this. He's been like talking about. They could have gone to. He's what is it? Is he FBI? No, he's like
No,
Justice Department or something. Like,
Justice Department. He's been tasked by the Justice Department.
right, something.
Yeah.
He's something government
Yeah.
agency,
Mhm.
like, to make sure things are going okay. And I just love Colin Farrell's performance here. If I know that everyone thinks about Tom Cruise in here, but I don't think we would get this is just Tom Cruise is almost just another Tom Cruise here.
Mhm.
I mean, he hasn't.
Sure,
He
yeah.
hasn't. This is the early stages of him in the run, and
The run.
the Tom Cruise run, but he solidified himself as like a very key. But I think Colin Farrell brings the juxtaposition that we need in order for him to have there, and then have that, like we talked about, that rug pulled over him is just fantastic. I don't know, I think at when we get to the end of this film, I just appreciate that, like in The Fugitive, a little more so than The Fugitive, even and more so than you even think about, like Back to the Future, right? Is that we get really solid moments with not only our main protagonist, but individuals that come into play with them, right? We have let's see, let me pull up with Tom or Chief Anderton, and then with the guy who ends with Neil whatever,
Yeah.
as Fletcher.
Mhm.
We have there's a fight there, and there's a personal growth and challenge that is faced there. Then it moves over into Burgess as Max von who his character is played is like trusting him, and him trying to like give some sound advice, with Whitmer trying to tackle that, this, looking at Anderton's use, and seeing if he has done something wrong, or like, as all the things they've done in this education, is this the right man to be running this show?
Yeah.
Is what it comes down to, right? But then having Agatha come into play, and like, what does it mean to be a precog, and how that implays again the world protagonists of how this all plays. And then you get the Anderton with his former wife, and like this moment of like wishing. I think one of the most beautiful scenes is the moment where Agatha sees the different future.
Yeah.
And like, we don't get that much except for this one moment here, that like, after the idea of that he has made a different choice than what the original site has happened.
Mhm.
Is there a way for, and I don't know, I just think there's a beauty in this level of like, we have a through line with this noir detective in a futuristic place trying to get answers for a thing that he doesn't even have any connection to, but having the power of what characters can bring to this story.
Mhm.
And it's really, honestly, I forget how much I just love this movie.
This movie's great. I do want to talk a little bit about like the stylized, everything stylized here in this movie. So this is Janusz Kaminski as the director of photography.
Mm-hmm.
We talked about him in when we did West Side Story,
Yes.
Steven Spielberg's West
Mhm.
Side Story.
Mm-hmm.
There is so many similarities here in West Side Story.
Break it down.
In camera movement, in
Mhm.
blocking. We talked a lot in our episode of West Side Story, the gym scene,
Yes.
right? When they come in and he's weaving in and out of all of these individuals that are dancing, out of all the choreography, and then you have our two leads just kind of cross into the shot, and then we like lock onto them. There's a lot of like especially in that opening sequence when we're being explained how the system works, just all of this weaving back and forth between Anderton, between Colin Farrell's character Whitwer, and like as they're walking past, as he's using his hands to move, he weaves around a lot of the action. The mall sequence,
The mall sequence.
right? I think he's great at capturing um not just necessarily action, but like capturing movement in in familiar, simple spaces.
Mm.
Because you're just in a room with three walls, as four walls, as he's talking about, as he's trying to get the first original murder, right? Or in the mall sequence, it's just a long hallway. Yeah, we go up and down, but like nothing that exciting. Like it's just a mall, right? West Side Story at the gym, like it's just a gym.
Mm.
But like he is so great, in my opinion, at just just movement in simple spaces. And it just really stood out to me. Like what a great cinematographer he is.
No, I'm going to bring this up because I think what the mall scene and honestly the gym scene out of the uh West Side Story is that like he there's a level of like a lot of there's a talk about motivated movement of camera movement.
Mhm.
Okay, and a lot of times it's like, why is your camera being motivated
Yeah.
for the move? They now in a lot of scenarios, they would be handheld in the mall scene. It's a chase scene,
Yeah.
right? And he doesn't necessarily go that route. So
Mm-mm.
there is a little bit of that, but he cuts to a lot of more wides than in some like different kind of scenarios of like rising tension.
Yeah.
And I think what I like that he's done in both the scenarios is that there is the level of, it's not just he does simple camera moves, but he introduces foreground and background elements
Yeah.
in order to help to amplify that slow movement, right? Someone crossing in front of the subjects with while they're moving with the camera and the things flying past, right? The use of being able to like be up close, but then cut to the other portions of other individuals that might be in play for this chase, for this mall scene. And for me, I actually like I also felt like, man, they did not, for the amount of set pieces and the sci-fi world building, they do an amazing job to like only use the moments that they need enough to build the sci-fi aspect of it, but how much the rest of it is basic. I think the scene when he goes to the room with Agatha, and there's like this moment of her and them, the wide, and then like close-ups of the impact, but then going back to wides with the showing up of the police, like that one too is just it's a small room. Like
Yeah.
how exciting can you make that thing happen? But it is impactful.
Mm-hmm.
And the way they're like, okay, this is climax of like, and all of a sudden this, screaming of run, like,
It's so good. Also, I love the apartment sequence, right? He's had his surgery done, and they release the spider bots. Oh, dude, those spider bots.
I think they give me nightmares when I was
Oh,
easily.
I had totally forgotten about
Me
that
too. Me
sequence.
too.
And this last watch, I was just like, these things are so scary. The scary in like their movement, scary in their purpose. Like they just come in, burst in, no matter what you're doing, and you have to open your eye and have it scan you. And just what the implication of having these spiders in your home is what's so frightening. But I love the over the top shot that we get
Yeah.
as we're seeing all these different tenants, their interactions. It felt very North by Northwest because Hitchcock loves those shots from above, right? And as we're going weaving literally from room to room and seeing these people's lifestyles and what they're doing, and then having to stop and get scanned. Like it was just it's like watching a dance.
It is, and it's a form of blocking. It's a form like this is what we're going to depict. I think like, and I mean, this is becoming more and more of like a shot that I would like to do one day, because it was in that the residence. They recreated the White House residence so they could do these top down style shots.
Yeah.
It was in John Wick 4, the most recent John Wick,
Mm-hmm.
in a one take, where they did one giant long, and this is also a one, I think might be
Yeah.
a one take. It's like
Yeah.
it goes up the top and she's following around for this sequence of searching for
Mm-hmm.
answers, right? And it's ominous. Like there's just there's a lot of power. There's something about it that it's like I think that shot adds to the unworldliness or otherworldliness or sci-fi-ness with the spider bot. Like you're observing
Yes.
this world taking place, and it's a weird one.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then you have the twinkling sounds and whatnot. So just
It's really good.
Walk me through just the music real fast. Give me the breakdown of I don't know who the composer is for this one, but
it was John Williams.
oh, yes.
I think it's a beautiful score. I like it. I don't think I've listened to a lot of it. But I think it's a good score. It works well. I think I just kind of want to talk favorite moments, favorite scenes for you. What do you like now?
Favorite scene. I think technical. I think it is that spider like top down shot. I think that's kind of already one. But I think one of my favorite scenes in sense of the film is actually when he goes to visit the creator of Agatha and
Dr. Heinemann.
Yeah, Dr. Heinemann. I don't know that the tension. There's a buildup of like he's been on the run trying to figure out this answer. He's trying to go to somebody, and her, and the mystery of her.
Yeah.
And like, there's a lot to go into there. And honestly, like if you're talking about it, like they try to do the Minority Report, I think redo or do a level of it to try to recreate this film. But what they could have done is like how did the whole thing come to be with Vitamin, right?
Yeah.
Not focus on Anderton or the Precrime, whatever. Focus on before the Precrime was even built, right? Anyways, and I don't know. I love the world building there. I love the scene. I love this like weird, this interesting, this character who to some degree is like, does she know more than Anderton?
Right.
And she does in some aspects, but it also feels like she like knows more about him. Anyways, I love that tension and that,
going back to that noir element,
yes,
right?
I think that's where I think that for me, I think it's a powerful scene for the film.
Yeah.
And I just, it's simple. And I think, again, it comes down to some of the camera sequences and editing for that scene, which is awesome.
Yeah. It's a wonderful sequence because we just finish off that chase, right?
Yeah.
With the jetpacks through the jumping from car to car, which I think that's the weakest part of the movie. The CGI there, it just feels too much like Star Wars prequels. But then we get into the car factory, which was ripped straight from what Hitchcock wanted to do in North by Northwest. He had originally pitched a action sequence of Cary Grant running through a car factory and like escaping the guys as a car was being assembled, but they couldn't figure out the logistics of it, so he left it on just didn't do it. And then these guys were like, let's take that, we'll do it. But it's great because then we're introduced to Dr. Heinemann and like she's that mysterious character from your traditional noir movies who has information, but can you trust her? Like, is she on our protagonist's side, or is she just here to like cast doubt and confusion and whatnot? And it's a great sequence. I like that one.
Yeah. So that's me.
I think for me, my favorite one has it. I do like the eye surgery. As much as I hate it, I love it. I love it just because like it slows the movie. It's right after yours favorite moment, right? It slows the movie down, but it's propelling us to the remainder part of the movie. But it's interesting just because like we have someone here who was previously arrested by Anderton, and just the idea of like having your eyes plucked down. I just like it, and like the interactions. The nurse who goes to the bathroom and doesn't wash her hands, like he is sneezing. Like
I know.
there's it adds it adds, I don't know, it adds an extra element that you didn't need to add to this movie. And I just think it's grimy, it's gross, but I like it. I don't know what about it. I just love that the entire sequence.
It's yes.
It's gross.
It's so gross.
Yeah, but I do like it. Look, I think this movie is wonderfully paced, great themes. Um, it's interesting as we've talked about, like how it depicts these big themes with a murder mystery and in a noir style. I love the characterization of Anderton as this chief who has a personal connection to it, and it's something like it's something unique because we need to get bought into his motives and why he's doing what he needs to do, through a personal experience that he had of his son being abducted. Um, I just I think this I talk a lot about Jurassic World or Jurassic Park being a perfect screenplay. I think this one's up there as well. Like it's just how do you create this is a masterpiece, and how do you create a world in how to do proper world building without over explaining and leaning too much into exposition. And I think this is it.
Man, I'm pumped that we came back to this one and we put it in this genre because it's been fun to uh watch this film be focused on not the sci-fi aspect but like that story of like him being wrongfully accused.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, I think there's no way around it, but at the end of the day, I think that it's nice to be able to see such a great execution to a simple theme and concept for a film.
Yeah.
But yeah. Anything else?
No, I love it. This is a great movie. We didn't talk a lot about that chase sequence with the jetpacks. The jetpacks kind of pull me away from it a little bit.
I think that's for me, but I think part of it is just because like, I think, we have to take into account 2002. They were trying to take swings on like what is the future going to look like, and their idea of like there'll be a level of personal transportation.
Yeah.
And their thought was maybe, it's not hoverboards.
Sure.
But it's this idea that like, okay, this might be still gas powered. We have autonomous vehicles that are, in crazy road and like extra roads, but everything is like automated or some kind of like system that is there. But having these jetpacks that allow people to, make it harder for people to run, and that policing element of that, it's the weak, some of the weakest parts, because it's like it just doesn't quite it doesn't feel as futuristic. It feels like quirky futuristic.
I think for me what it is that it has these moments where they're going like they're outside, like Anderton come in, like don't run. Everybody runs, right? And like they start crashing into the apartments,
Mm-hmm.
and they go like into people's homes, and then at one point the jetpack turns around and it fires up the hamburgers. I think it's just like Spielberg quirkiness that we hadn't seen up to this movie, and then like you put it in here, and that's what pulls me out. It's like the one kid that's just practicing his saxophone, or was it the saxophone?
Whatever, some
instrument, and it like I think it's that quirky funniness to it that's very that comes with every Spielberg movie, but like we hadn't had it up to this point thus far in the movie, and then like we lean into it hard here,
and then it kind of just doesn't come back.
It doesn't come back, and so I think that's kind of what it is. It's just like those little like funny moments, quote unquote funny moments that he interjects here, but it's like we didn't need it.
Yeah,
like you could just keep going with an action sequence. But I love like the factory sequence, that one gun, like just the pulse cannon,
dude. The freaking I love the idea. I was watching and I wrote down great concept for a future gun.
Yeah.
Of like, it's a shotgun, but it's not lethal. It's a shockwave.
Yeah.
But there's a mechanism. It's not easy, right? There's a mechanism that you still have to like whip it, and like whip it real good.
but again, like, no need to explain it. No need to, like, it's just part of the world. It enhances the world element that we're already in, and it's just, I love how he just has to spin it.
I mean, it's awesome.
Yeah, it's awesome.
Oh.
Yeah, that whole sequence is really good.
We hope you enjoyed today's episode on Minority Report. Be sure to subscribe wherever you get your podcast, or more importantly, head over to YouTube and hit that subscribe button, because we want you to see all the cool stuff we're doing here on Reel Chums.
Exactly. Yeah, and we want to hear from you. Like, what do you like about Minority Report? What do you not like? Where does this movie rank in your Spielberg movies? You can always connect with us as well on our website and join our newsletter at realchums.com/newsletter. And you can also connect with me on Threads and Instagram at Marstrosity, MarCtrosity.
And I'm at Rubio.tv.
Join us next week. We're going to wrap up our month of Wrongfully Accused with the next 3 days. This is starring Russell Crowe and Elizabeth Banks. And Liam Neeson makes a quick cameo here as well.
I think so.
It's a quirky, it's a fun movie. It's a remake of a French movie, but I really like this version. Go check it out and come back.
We'll see you guys in the next one.
Bye.